Welcome to Martini Time. It's been a beautiful day here in Blackstone. How sweet it is remembering Jackie Gleason. And it's been 75 here today. Jonquils are coming up. Looks like spring. And so we will continue our inquiry into victims today. That's what I've been doing during the day. My computer keyboard is, for me, is like a keyboard where I play insights. When I play on my computer keys, insights come up like tunes, you see. So the question is, how do we get insights? And well, let's use a wide angle. This is a wide angle lens. It's not that they're usually short, and you put them on your camera, and give you a wide angle lens. And when you do that, you get insight. The reason is that our normal consciousness is like a zoom lens. We just zoom in on that. We zoom in on that. We look at this, look at that. It's always looking at something. We're always looking at some object, some idea, some feeling. Everything's a something, and we're always looking at it. And it's called the monkey mind. And it just jumps around from one thing to another. It never gets still. Now, when you put on a wide-angle lens, you're not jumping around. You're just taking in the whole thing, and it's very still. As soon as you zoom in and start focusing on this, you focus on that, on there. There's a bird, there's a plane, there's a tree, there's a stick, boop, 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 you see. I can see stuff on my lip here. So the point is that when we just have no wide-angle lens in our bag or on our camera, and all we have is a zoom lens, our mind is very busy, and there's no insight. Because the insight comes from the background. And you know this, I mean, when you get insight always comes when you see the context in which something rises. The insight always comes when the background is expanded, or you get a wider angle. It's like when you look at a map on Google, and you turn up, you look for a map, and it comes up zoomed in, and you don't know where in the hell am I, and so you have to zoom out in order to see. Oh, I see. I'm in this part of the city. Oh, I recognize that. You pick a few streets, and boom, now you know where you are. But the context, you see, tells you where you is, and if you're too close, you're too zoomed in, you can't see the context, and you don't know where you are. We all have this experience in driving. You dope off. You're driving along and you doze off, but you get lost in thought, and suddenly, where in the hell am I? Have I gone by my thing, or is it ahead of me? I don't know. And then you see something you recognize. Oh, I know that store. I know where I am. And as soon the context drops into space. But when that context is gone, we're lost. The feeling of being in a forest and the compass doesn't work. The feeling of being in the desert where there's nothing to see, nothing familiar. The feeling of being in a crowd where there's nobody, you don't know anybody. You see, that's why people love hometowns, because you know everybody. You're always in the context. You're never lost, you see. So that feeling of being lost comes when we lose the context, the wider background. And you see, and this is a very familiar feeling, but I'm just trying to put it into context. So another way of looking at the let's see, how can I get back into victimhood here? I've been working on this, inquiring into this concept, this idea, this phenomena of victimhood, particularly in America, because we seem to be in a forest, lost in a forest of victims. Everything we see creates a victim. Anything that comes up in the news will divide into two victims, not just one. Let's explain. Take this. This is my dolphin pins for my submarines. But you see, this is two dolphins. 1, 2. So this centerpiece rises. Maybe this is a school shooting, or maybe this is anything on news, an event where anybody says we're a victim. Immediately, there is an opposite victim will appear. And now you have a contest or a conflict between two dolphins, both equal, each claiming to be the victim. And now this starts to create a whirlpool. Wow, 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 you see. And then when that exhausts itself, another issue comes up and it splits into two victims. But each side, you see, says the other one's the aggressor, I'm the victim. So take Black Lives Matter. So the black people rise up and say, we're victims of the police. And the police rise up and say, no, we're the victims of the black people. Or the white, or the person who's accused is the victim of racism, says, I'm a victim of racism. And the racist rises up and says, no, I'm a victim of you. The white people, the bikers are the victims. It's quite funny, but the point is that everything gets divided into two victims, you see. And objectively, and we get caught up in the mirror reflection, so we choose sides. Say, well, I'm for Black Lives Matter, so yeah, so they're the victims of the police. And then if we like the police, we'll get on the police side and say, no, they're the victims of the blacks, you see. And so that's why this division into two victims metastasizes into gangs or groups or realities. So we have two victim realities forming. And then that'll go around and around for a while, and then it goes off the news, and something else comes up, the mass shooters. So now and so you have another, it's called an Ouroboros, or a self-devouring snake, you see, of victims eating each other. And our whole culture now is like that. It's like victims are in the saddle in Ride America. And this is because we lack a wide-angle lens. You see, if I feel victimized, you see, well, I'll focus on the other person there, say, you're the one who's doing it, you see, and they're losing a narrow angle, and they're looking at me and saying, no, you're it, you see. They're two objects, you see. But if we put on the wide-angle lens, suddenly we see both sides. In other words, for me to see the two dolphins here, I have to be outside of it. I can see two dolphins. But if I identify with the dolphin, all I see is the other dolphin trying to eat me. And if I identify with this dolphin, all I see is this dolphin trying to eat me. But if I have a wide-angle lens, I see both the dolphins. I see them both going around and around like two tomcats, you see. So the wide-angle lens transcends duality. Now the duality would be the two victims locked in mortal combat. I'm a victim. No, you're a victim. No, you're a victim. I'm not a victim. You're the victim. No, I'm not, yada, 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 see. And that begins to become a feedback loop. And it begins to grow until finally it just kind of like dies off in 3 or 4 days, and then a new set comes up, and then it comes back again. And these victim whirlpools just keep forming and sucking up social media news, internet news. News gets sucked into it, you see. And the news divides into victim versus victim. And you get the talking heads. Then you get the experts on either side. And so forth. You get the fake news and the real news. You see, and the alternate reality and the reality, and no, you're alternate, no, I'm alternate, no, you're alternate, no, you're fake, no, you're fake, yada, yada, yada. You can see that if you put on a wide-angle lens, you see. So, what to do? I mean, we can't change. All you can do is see the world. And if you see this game of the victims, the dueling victims, if you see the game of the dueling victims, you're not playing the game. And now your response is going to be different. It's going to be a creative response. You may get some insights. You may know what to do. You may want to do something. You may not want to do something. It doesn't make any difference. But the point is, you stop playing the game. And then if you're not playing the game, you don't get irritated by the game. You don't get sucked into it. You don't get pulled into one side or the other. You see, so many of my friends on Facebook, they get angry, they get disappointed, they get upset, they get why are people like this? Why are these bullies like this? Why are these conspiracy theorists? Why are they like this? You see, well, I'm really interested in understanding, in seeing. You see. It gives me peace. It gives me creative insight. It gives me a tune to play on my keyboard, you see. It gives me something to talk to you about. Seeing, understanding requires a wide-angle lens which doesn't invest in the either-or of the narrow focus lens. See, whatever the narrow focus, the zoom lens focuses on, you see, if I focus in on if I look at this now, you're looking at this as an object, and you may even zoom in. You may want to zoom in and look at all of this in there and all that, you see. And whatever you focus on, there is this, and then there's not that. Now, not this. This is this, and then not this is the background. Is the context, you see. Now, see, the meaning of this is going to be what I give it in my context, you see. So this doesn't, if this were a green screen, you could just take me out and put this at the beach and it might be lying on the beach, just like that. You see, it would be lying, or it might be like that. You see, you say, "Oh, I found a conch shell in the beach." That's a green screen. You see, but if you saw the real reality and not just projected reality, I've photoshopped a beach in there. This would be it. This is the real reality, you see. So the wide-angle lens would show you this reality. But if you've got a narrow focus lens on and you don't know it, if you've got a zoom lens on and you don't know it, and you focus in on this, the reality gets blurred. If you ever use a camera, if you put on a zoom lens, you zoom in and this is really sharp. But the sharper this gets, the more blurred the background is. So if the background is blurred, what's the meaning of this? I don't know. The background's blurred. I project the meaning on it. I project a background because it has to have a background. It just can't hover there abstract in space. It has to have a background, a context, you see. But I can't see it because my mind is only focused and the background is blurred. So all of us are running around with blurred backgrounds. And we just focus sharply. We think, I can really know this if I just get sharper, just get a sharper lens and focus in on that and look at all of that detail and all that. But the more I focus in on it, the more background blurs. Then you can't even see anything. And that's not real. We have to have a background because it's from the background that gives meaning. So when I project a background on there, then this has meaning. So the background I project, where does that come from? Well, it comes from my conditioning, comes from my orientation, comes from my history, comes from the groups I belong to. It comes from the reality groups I belong to. I join a reality group in order to stabilize the world and have a background that other people can agree on. So if I see the world as through Alex Jones, like a conspiracy theory, everything is a conspiracy theory, you see, then that's the background I project. So if this comes up, I'm going to project a background behind it that makes this a conspiracy, that makes this something, an entirely different meaning than if I just saw the real background here, but I can't see the real background because I don't have a wide-angle lens. So if I don't have a wide-angle lens and I just got a narrow focus, somebody's got to provide the background. Now, if I provide the background and no one else agrees on it, the people will call me crazy. So I'm going to project a background that other people agree on. So I get in a background group, you see. It's kind of like a Photoshop group. And so we'll all project the same conspiracy theory on the background here. And that way we'll know what this thing is. You see, you only know it because of the background screen I put on it, behind it, you see. But no one else sees that background screen because I'm in a projector booth. I'm in a theater of my own reality, projecting this background on the screen before all the objects I see. We all see the same object, but it has different meaning according to the background. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. So the victim game, you see, requires a background that makes me a victim. And if you're a victim because there's an abuser. And if there's an abuser of you, well, that abuser is going to call you the abuser, and he's going to be the victim. All husbands who abuse their wives think the wife is abusing them. You see? You see, so every abuser is a victim, and every victim is an abuser. And so it's a dance like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. They're in tune. They dance, the victim and the abuser. Each in pain from the abuse of the other, and each causing the pain of the other. Back and forth, a vortex of pain that continues in time as a ritual, a karmic ritual. They can't stop because neither side has a wide-angle lens. Each side is projecting their background to give meaning to the person in relationship, you see. So you get a wide-angle lens, first of all, by being curious about this ritual, this karmic replay of pain of the victim and the abuser. And we become curious about it, because if it keeps on repeating, you should know you're in a Groundhog Day. You're in a repetition, you're in a ritual that's unconscious. You don't see it because you got the wrong background. You're looking at a projection on a screen. The fact is real, but the background is a projection. Okay. Now, when I don't know if I want to get into, we're running out of time. I'll pick this up tomorrow. So think about this. Play with it. Get curious. Thanks for dropping in.